Yo, what's up, guys? What we're going to do is we're going to look for some bets for tomorrow. Pretty tired, but hopefully we can find some good plays. I say this in every video, but again, there's a lot of sports books out there. I'm not saying, I use every single one. I haven't used a lot of these. Again, the reason is depending on where you're located, you'll have different, sports books available to you. So, for example, there's some good bets on, FanDuel. I'm currently not located in a state where FanDuel is legal, but there are some really good bets on FanDuel. But again, I can't bet on FanDuel. So depending on the, location that you're located, and I'll go ahead, I'll share my screen. Depending on the place you're located, you'll see different plays available, right? So there's some good bets on FanDuel, Bet365, whatever. But obviously I'm going to focus on, the books I use. As much as I like you guys, I'm going to focus on the books I use. And then I'm also going to focus on, some of the more popular sports books that I like to use, which are mainly ParlayPlay. So I gave out this play on Twitter, right? We cashed today 100 to 1,200, 5-leg parlay. Underdog Fantasy, we've overall been pretty hot. I mean, again, you got to remember these are 6x payouts, right? $100 to win 600. You're not going to win most of them. You're betting 100 to win 600. So, sure, a bit of a losing streak here, down 300, but then it's up 600 and then down 450 and then a big win streak. So, at the end of the day, it's all about having an edge long-term and winning long-term. And then the PrizePicks Taco Tuesday cash today. So, in general, cashing a lot of plays. Obviously, this play, literally horrible, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Here, we get a 10x payout, 25 to 250. And then we were pretty close on this play, 100 to win 200. We needed Kiyotaka over 16. He had 13. Otherwise, this would have been a big payout. Otherwise, this would have been, $2,500, but whatever. We're stuck with the 2x, right? Kind of how it is. If you go 5 for 6, you get a 2x payout. So profit's profit. And we'll go ahead. We'll look for some other plays. So we can start out on a bunch of different sports books. We'll explain different strategies, stuff like that. So, we can kind of look at any different platform. Again, I recommend you get as many sports books as possible. And there's a few reasons. The first is you never know which sports books are going to have, profitable promos on a given day, right? So PrizePicks, this play's looking good as well. Taco Tuesday. So, PrizePicks had some promo today. So it's good to have PrizePicks, right? They ran some special promo today, which we want to bet on, right? There were some really good bets on, PrizePicks that we took advantage of. These lines weren't on ParlayPlay, but these lines were on ParlayPlay. So all these books have different lines, different odds from one another. So the more books you have, the better. And another benefit, and signing up for a sports book just takes a couple minutes. And another benefit is most of these books offer, pretty good new user offers. So Hot Streak, I literally just signed up for this sports book a month ago, less than a month ago. And the only reason I did it is they have an $100 or 100% deposit match up to $200. So you put in $200, they give you 200 for free. You put in 200, you have 400 in your account. They literally give you $200 for signing up. All these sports books run promos to try to, PrizePicks with their little hot dogs. All these books run promos to try to incentivize new people to sign up, right? So this play cash overall been running pretty hot. I mean, hopefully we can keep it going. But anyways, we'll get into some plays. 664 win here. So all these books, work slightly differently. They all have different perks, different promos. More books you get, the better. So I'll be giving out plays from a bunch of different books. I'm from Virginia, and in Virginia, FanDuel is legal. So I'll be giving out plays from FanDuel. Bet365 is legal in Virginia, where I'm from. I'm not currently in Virginia, but, you can see there's some good NFL bets, stuff like that. So more books you have, the better, long story short. But currently, I can't use Bet365. I can't use FanDuel. So the main tool I've been using is right here. And you can see there's a lot of esports plays. And a lot of people would be like, oh, I don't know anything about esports. And it's neither do I. nobody stays up until 3 a.m. to watch these games. Maybe sometimes you do, but you can see the benefit of esports is there's so many different lines. I mean, Underdog Fantasy has like, 5,000 lines on their platform right now. And all these books set lines independently. They all have different lines from one another. So essentially, like, there's a lot of opportunity when there's limitless games, limitless players, limitless lines. There's more spots for sports books to screw up. We all like football. I love football, but it's only one day a week, basically, right? Sunday. And there's not that many games. It's pretty easy for sports books to keep their lines in check. So we can start looking for some plays on different sports books, and there are different strategies we can use. But I mean, like, this is crazy, right? If you look at ParlayPlay, they have so we can start to make some slips between PrizePicks or Underdog Fantasy and ParlayPlay. So again, like, OddsJam is a pretty simple product and, pretty simple concept. It's just about looking for value. So again, there's tens of thousands of esport lines. 99% of these plays aren't profitable. Just like an investor, right? We'll look at millions of possible investments, not millions, but thousands, looking for that one spot of gold. It's kind of the same thing here, right? Most of these plays are horrible, but we're looking for big discrepancies. So here's a perfect example, right? You look at this Scorth player. His line is 4 first map on Underdog Fantasy, and ParlayPlay has his line at 5.5. So that's a big discrepancy, right? Like, imagine, an NBA player, his rebound is 4 on PrizePicks, 5.5 on Underdog Fantasy. You just don't see it. This only happens in these niche markets like esports, which is why there's, in general, just a lot of opportunity. So there's a huge discrepancy between two sports books. And then we can kind of like take a look at these other discrepancies, right? Essentially, we're finding spots where the model, unfortunately, in esports, you don't want to take players from opposing teams both to go over. So we'll skip over this play. I don't want to take this. Like, we can make 2 slips, though, and then we can move on to PrizePicks. And again, like, what kind of stinks about esports is there's just not a lot of sports books that post lines, right? So when you think about betting on the MLB, right, like, or tennis even, but, tennis, MLB is like, there's tons of sports books posting lines. So you have tons of data points telling you where a line should be set. So like here, and this is just for the sports books in Colorado, which is like 1/10 of the sports books on OddsJam. And OddsJam's based on odds from hundreds of sports books. Is there's only like, there's tons of sports books posting lines. And FanDuel's a pretty big discrepancy, giving you plus 186. So we feel pretty confident that FanDuel is a market outlier. And this is a good play to go with. I mean, same thing with Blake Snell. So you can see they actually just moved the odds from minus 104 to minus 108. You got to be quick. But when a bunch of books are posting lines, of course, you should be more confident in where the line should be set. There's a ton of books posting lines, right? So whereas for esports, unfortunately, there's just not many books that have lines. So what you're going to notice, though, is did they move down this play? So Scorth, we want to take the over, and Surin, we want to take the over. So we found these big discrepancies between the two sports books. But again, there's just not a ton of sports books that post lines on, so I want to take the under here. And then for Surin, we want to take the under here and the over on ParlayPlay, right? Or sorry, we want to take the under on both. So we found these big discrepancies. So imagine this play Surin, right? Like, imagine it were an NBA player, right? You take him over 3.5 rebounds, under 4.5. That's a big discrepancy, enough to cover the vig on sportsbooks. So if this player Surin ends with exactly 4, then we're going to win our under 4.5. We're also going to win our over 3.5, and they already moved it. So again, we got to move quicker. So I'll try to move quicker. I don't know if a lot of people are on this live stream, whatever, but we'll try to move quicker, get down some plays. And essentially, this strategy is called middle betting. So now we can go back to the star screens play. Again, we didn't want to play it before because these players were on opposing teams, and you don't want to take 2 unders for players from opposing teams, but we can take 2 unders here, 2 overs here, right? Huge line discrepancies. And this strategy is called middle betting. And the reason that I like it for esports is, again, there's just not a ton of books that post lines. So here we're finding these huge discrepancies, but it's not really clear. So on both these platforms, you can't pair players from the same team. So you'll notice it's going to tell me, hey, only 1 player from each esport team. This is true for PrizePicks, or not for PrizePicks, but for Underdog and ParlayPlay. You can't pair players from the same team. So I'm not going to be able to place that bet. But we can find some pretty good discrepancies here. There's a lot of plays on Underdog Fantasy right now, it looks like. So a lot of plays on Underdog Fantasy. So what we can do is we can, try to create a little slip. You can see these are just all the discrepancies prioritized by how big the discrepancy is. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? Like OddsJam is kind of like the Bloomberg terminal of sports betting, just showing you where books are setting their lines, where there's value in the market, where there is discrepancies. So maybe we actually just start out on Underdog Fantasy, not to keep switching things up. But it seems like there's a lot of plays on Underdog. So here's a good example, right? Like this play. So we'll get rid of these 2 plays for now. Is you can take a look at this guy. So this is a sports league called Big 3. It's a basketball league. And you can see here, Franklin Session, his points plus rebound plus assist line is 21.5 on PrizePicks. On ParlayPlay, it's also 21.5, right? So all this data, even if you only use Underdog, you want to consider because it's all information as you place a bet, right? Just like as a sports bettor, you may not use Caesars or Pinnacle or whatever, but all these books are data points with really sophisticated models. All these books have invested a lot of money in their ability to set lines. They're all telling you where a line should be set, which makes it more clear that FanDuel's a big discrepancy and is a really good bet. So you can kind of play with your settings. I mean, I typically recommend, whatever, set your max odds to plus 190 or this at like 40, 50. You can kind of optimize your settings. We have some videos about it. We have some videos about the math behind sports betting. I mean, by that I mean countless videos about how to calculate the profit margin of your bets and stuff. But here it's like, the strategy is pretty simple. It's like, no offense, you're not going to create a better model than sports books that have, a lot of money, better data feeds, more employees, better engineers than you, better resources. You're not going to be able to create your own model to just predict what's going to happen in the Big 3. It's just not going to happen. The way you beat books and you get an edge is you use their lines against each other because they all set lines independently, and you look for discrepancies. So here's a really good example. Is if you look at this Prince player, so we now have 1 Big 3 play. I mean, this is Sunday, which is a little annoying, but sorry, we got to wait till Sunday for that bet. Is you're going to see ParlayPlay, right? 1 sports book, so 1 data point. As sharp bettors, we treat every book as a data point. They have his line at 5. So does PrizePicks, right? So once again, Underdog Fantasy is screwing up. They're setting the line at 6, right? So we want to take the under, which is exactly what OddsJam is recommending. So it's like, okay, cool. And you can see there's a lot of big discrepancies. But what I like to do is I like to look for where Underdog is a discrepancy versus at least 2 other sports books, right? So here, PrizePicks and Underdog are a huge discrepancy. For map 1, 2 headshots, Underdog has his line at 15. PrizePicks is at 12. But it's not really clear who's screwing up. So we can middle it, take the over 12 on PrizePicks, the under 15 on Underdog Fantasy. But first, we can just find a prop bet. So here's another one. Underdog Fantasy at 2.5. Other sports books, all, PrizePicks, ParlayPlay are both aligned. They have the line at 3. And you can see they just removed that play. So I'm going to move quickly. So we're going to lock in this over 2.5. And then we're also going to lock in this under 29. 2 other sports books, PrizePicks, ParlayPlay. I mean, again, you're never going to see an NBA player at 29 points on Underdog, 26.5 on PrizePicks and ParlayPlay. Only going to happen in esports. You got to be betting on esports. So we want this TS player, Valorant Esports. So we'll go to esports and we want TL. His name is literally TL. Of course, that's, or TS. It's going to be pretty hard to find. So, kind of a pain. TS. I mean, there's literally like hundreds of matches. So what time is this game? Doesn't say here. So whatever. We'll go to this next League of Legends play. I mean, literally impossible to find that play. There's so many lines on Underdog Fantasy. But if we look up the still none player, right, this is a different game. I mean, it's the same strategy. Underdog has his line at 2.5. PrizePicks ParlayPlay have his line at 3. We found a play with an edge. So 3 League of Legends picks. 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 2 p.m. tomorrow. You're not getting anything done at work. That's a fact. So on Underdog, you want to place 3 pick entries with insurance. Again, like on PrizePicks, you never want to place 3 pick entries. So on PrizePicks, you're going to notice any 3 picks you select, you get a 5x payout. That's a horrible payout. Underdog Fantasy gives you a 6x payout. 100 to win 600 versus 100 to win 500. It makes a big difference long term. So 3 plays I'm locking in, and we got our first play done. Woo! We got our first Underdog Fantasy play done. Cool. So we locked it in without someone moving the line before, or some Underdog Fantasy employee watching the stream and moving the line ahead of us. And again, like if you use FanDuel, hit this bet, whatever. It's like pretty similar strategy. You can see like sportsbook. Look at this girl. I think, yeah, it's a girl. Julia Stoliarenko. Caesar Sportsbook opened her line at plus 300 a week ago. She's come crashing down all the way to plus 170, right? UFC has some crazy line movements. You can see all the sports books are like that. I mean, just like the price of a stock is always changing, right? Good economic news comes out, the price of the stock goes up. The company is unprofitable, maybe more than expected. The stock price goes down, whatever. Pretty simple to understand. Is like sportsbook odds are always moving, right? Like due to a lot of things, injuries, line movements, weather changes in the NFL, all those things move around the total. Lineup changes in the MLB, right, affect everything in the game. In the NBA, are certain players playing or not? That affects all the player props, stuff like that. So like these lines are always moving, but what makes sports betting particularly interesting, and I explained this in other videos, but it's really important, is like in the stock market, you go to Fidelity, you go to E-Trade, you go to Robinhood, you're going to see the price of Meta or Facebook is $316. Maybe slight differences in fees, but like there's a unified price, right? In sports betting, like this is the exact same bet. If this girl wins the fight, if this woman wins the fight, your bet wins. But books have completely different prices for the exact same bet. It's like you go to E-Trade and Facebook stock is trading at $200, and you go to Fidelity and it's $400. It's crazy. It's literally crazy if you think about it. And what's even crazier about sports betting is your returns are in general daily. So the UFC is obviously on Saturday. But if you think about most of your bets, right, most of these games are tomorrow. So in general, in sports betting, your returns are daily, right? So if you have a 2% ROI on your bets, you're betting on MLB games that are today or tomorrow. So 2% ROI a day means 30 days in a month means 60% in a month. Obviously, a 60% monthly ROI is pretty good. So if you learn how to bet on sports and get a 2% edge, you're going to have a 60% month-over-month ROI. So we can go to PrizePicks. We just hit that play on Underdog Fantasy. And you can see in general, some big discrepancies. So this seems like a good play on PrizePicks, right? Big 3, right? And like maybe you don't know anything about it. I don't know if they're washed up NBA players, but Dante Green, his line is 8.5 on PrizePicks. ParlayPlay has his line at 8, right? Don't overcomplicate it, right? Like you're trying to find an edge and win long term. So let's reload Underdog. It said Underdog had his line at 8, I think, right? Underdog Fantasy has Dante Green's rebound line at 8. Maybe I have to reload OddsJam. Yeah, you can see it's there now. So OddsJam's just reading in all the odds, updating them, kind of like pointing out plays. So this play seems good on PrizePicks. Granted, the game Sunday, killer threes versus enemies. Some pretty interesting team names. But it's like, okay, that's good to know. And what we can do is we can filter out a couple of these markets, and we can just try to find some plays on PrizePicks. So again, like 1 versus 1.5 is a big discrepancy. Like it's massive in terms of percentage. It's a 50% increase, right? Like you have to imagine, you know, like in the NBA, if PrizePicks had a line at 10, Underdog Fantasy 15, that would be a big deal. That's the same thing as 1 versus 1.5. It's a really big deal, right? For shot on goal props, 1 versus 1.5 is a huge deal, right? Because that player is very likely to end up on 0, 1, 2, something around 1. So these differences are a really big deal. So we can go here and let's get rid of the CFL props and let's just see what we can find. So let's check out this play. So we can go over to League of Legends, right? This guy at 1, okay? We head over to Underdog Fantasy and we want to take him under 1.5. And again, you get an added benefit if we can find players on opposing teams, one guy to go over, one guy to go under. That's an added benefit. So that's something I just like try to look out for in general. Kind of overwhelmed with the amount of like discrepancies that are there right now. Underdog Fantasy seemed to have the best plays. Maybe let's go back there for a sec and then we can hop back over. So here, like these are good middle opportunities, right? So what you could do is, again, like go here to Underdog and we want to take this guy over. And then we want to take him over on Underdog, both over 3.5. ParlayPlay at 4.5. We found a huge line discrepancy. And a middle is simply saying, you know, I don't have an opinion on the game. All I know is I'm seeing a massive line discrepancy. And again, these players are on the same team, so we're only going to be able to bet one of them. So whatever, we'll just take this play. You know, they're both 1 kill line discrepancies, so we'll just take this play on Sorin. So now we have 2 good plays and a possible middle betting opportunity. So then Franklin Session, here it seems like Underdog Fantasy is the side that's screwing up, right? PrizePicks is posting odds too. They have the line at 6. And again, like on these platforms, we're just trying to win, you know, on Underdog. Like you don't need to win every play. It's just about winning a certain percentage of your picks if you want to be profitable long term. So here's another play, Scorched. So they added this back in. It's a little worse now, which is annoying, obviously. It used to be a 1.5 point discrepancy. Now it's no, ParlayPlay just moved the line. So now it's only a 0.5 point discrepancy, right? This said 4.5 versus 5.5. It's already down to 5. So Mike Taylor under 22.5. What else do we have? So Ferret over 2.5. So this seems pretty good. Trying to remember what I already bet. So I already placed this Ferret bet. So Underdog Fantasy only gives me $100 on esports plays. So I can only bet the same player up to $100. Kind of annoying, but whatever. So if I search Valorant, does that work? No, it doesn't. So let's go here. Let's go to Valorant. And let's type in TS. And again, it sounds so simple, just like, oh, like, you know, follow the data, look for line discrepancies. But if you think about it, it really just like, you know, it should make sense. You know, here we go. Here we found this TS play. I just searched the team name. It's like, again, it just kind of boils down to like, you know, you're never going to be able to watch sports and outsmart the market, right? Like, It's like the people who think they can just tell you which stock is going to go up or down tomorrow. It's like there are millions of smart people with models like the sportsbooks. This is their full-time job, billion-dollar companies trying to set lines. You're not just going to outsmart them with a little model, right? The way you beat them is you find discrepancies when there's inefficiencies in the market, when there's value in the market. And you also have to remember, like, lines are set based on. So here's another play, right? His line's 8.5 on Underdog. PrizePicks has his line at 7.5. We go back to League of Legends. It's like sportsbook odds are based on supply and demand, right? So his line 7.5 here. So this is what we want to hit on Underdog Fantasy, right? We found 3 really good line discrepancies. So again, only $100 max bet size. Like, so many people spend all day trying to find the perfect play. It's like at the end of the day, you can only bet $100. You're never really going to make money if you're placing one bet a day and trying to predict the future. It's about finding plays with an edge and placing as many bets as possible. And we have a bunch of articles about that, but this play I'm going to lock in. So we have 2 esports play and a big 3 play. So there we go. And again, you can find middle bets kind of lame because you're hedged. Like, it's always more fun to just have a bet on as opposed to middle betting. Middle betting is obviously a little less risky, whatever. So here's another one. Elijah Stewart, under 13.5. PrizePicks ParlayPlay have his line at 12.5. So Underdog Fantasy has been, at least my personally most profitable book. Compared to PrizePicks. And in general, I'm just able to find these like Underdog Fantasy always seems to see, seems more often. So this big 3 league is coming in clutch, right? Like, you won't see this in the NBA. Underdog is higher on all these players, so their model is screwing up. No, this player, they're lower, Gerald Green. So we want to go to Green. And we want to take him over 12.5. So there's another 3 picker, right? And again, like, not every day is going to be a winner, but hey, these 3 picks seem pretty good for Sunday. Got to remember we have it on, but, we'll go ahead. We'll lock that in. A lot of plays on Underdog, but you can middle bet, whatever. There's a lot of line discrepancies in general right now. League of Legends, right? Here's another one for tomorrow. Underdog has his line at 3.5. Sportsbooks have the line at 4. So we're adding, basically every single market on all of these fantasy sites. We're adding to OddsJam. And that's just going to mean more discrepancies, more profitable bets. Like, I've definitely been more profitable since we added esports and stuff like that. More line discrepancies, more profitable betting opportunities. Shouldn't be that surprising. More sports books you have means the more promos you get. The more promos you get means the more, whatever, like sign-up bonuses and all those good things. The more good lines are going to be available to you. So again, middle betting is effective, but, let's see what else we can find. And then we can go back here and kind of refresh this. So we've placed now, I think, 3 bets on Underdog Fantasy. And again, like, just like the price of a stock moves, it's the most important thing you'll understand in sports betting. It's the same thing with sportsbook odds. So this lady, Julia Stolyarenko, her line has come crashing down from plus 300 to plus 170, right? Within the past week, all the lines have been ripping towards her. So what does that indicate to you? She's more likely to win the fight, right? And why is that? I don't know. Maybe her opponent got injured. She didn't make weight. She didn't, or maybe every single sharp bettor started hammering her at plus 300, and sportsbooks continued to drop the odds. Just like the same way when people are like, oh, I think this stock is worth more money, I'm going to buy it. That means you think you're smarter than everyone else, because everyone else can do the same thing, right? The price is set on, there's millions of people who wake up every day, really smart people, and just think about, is this stock too high or too low? So unless you think you're smarter than all of them, the current price is where supply and demand is equal. So it's the same thing here. If you think you're smarter than the sports books and every other sports bettor, then bet with your gut. But that's not going to work. That's what 99% of sports bettors do. The way you beat them long term is you extract edge in the market. You look for line discrepancies. Because again, right? Like probably what happened is sportsbooks opened her odds at plus 300. A lot of sharp bettors, syndicates, sports betting hedge funds were like, no, she's not that big of an underdog. She should be like plus 180. So her line has come crashing down because all the action was coming in at her plus 300. Just like if everyone's like, this stock is undervalued, all the smart hedge funds, if they're all like, this stock is too low, they'll buy it and the price goes up, supply and demand. If all the action's coming in on one side, sportsbooks move the odds, right? So unless you think you're smarter than every other sports bettor who's looking at these lines, which is millions of people across the world, you shouldn't bet with your gut, because that's essentially what you're implying. You think you're smarter than everyone else. I would never, at this point, try to create a model to predict odds better than a sportsbook would, the way I do it and the way everyone, in my opinion, should do it, unless you're like, some really great modeler and you have a team of modelers, then maybe you can take on the sports books just with your own models, with your own gut, for sure. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? But the way you make consistent money is like you take advantage of the profitable promos. If you're like me and you're normal, you take advantage of the profitable promos, the 100% deposit matches. You take advantage of those and you find these big discrepancies in the market. You have multiple sports books and you hit those bets. So again, a lot of bets on different sports books. SBK is a sports book in Colorado. I think just in Colorado, maybe in other states, but whatever, you get the point. Like I've seen when I was in Colorado, I placed a lot of bets on SBK. I'm not sure if it's legal in other states now, but whenever I go to a new state, I sign up for the sports books. I at least do their new user promos, like their $100, $200, whatever deposit matches. I do every single one because it's literally free money. You sign up for Hot Streak, you get $200 for free. You bet the $200 and you can like hedge it if you want to make sure you make risk-free money. We have tons of videos on the OddsJam YouTube about hedging and stuff like that. And then, you place bets with them. So again, there's some good middles out there. As you can tell, I'm a little tired. I may need to get like a shot of vodka and coffee and espresso. Then I'll give out some plays on Twitter, but, don't want to keep these live streams too long. If I see anything, crazy, or maybe I'll come back on live in a bit. But as I always, hopefully these videos are educational. I gave out some picks. I'm sure we could find some picks on PrizePicks, but Underdog Fantasy tends to move the fastest anyways. So any questions you have, my email is just alex@oddsham.com. You can DM me on Twitter. I respond, to everyone. If I'm a little slow, ping me on email, alex@oddsham.com. And, Underdog Fantasy tends to move lines the fastest, as you probably saw during this live stream. But any other plays I find for the next hour or two, I'll give out on Twitter. And if I get a second wind, I'll probably be back on live stream. Pretty fun to do. Hit some bets on live stream. What's better than that? So hopefully this was helpful, educational. Hopefully you got down some of these pretty good bets on Underdog Fantasy. And I'll be back soon.